World War II had effectively stopped the world between 1939 and 1945. To this day, it remains the most geographically widespread military conflict the world has ever seen. Although the fighting reached across many parts of the globe, most countries involved shared a united effort aimed at ending the aggression of the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. For the American people, the experience of war was different from that of all the other nations involved. For other countries, the war brought mass destruction, mass casualties, the rationing of basic foodstuffs, and occupation by foreign armies. None of this happened to the American people. In the USA, living standards went up, not down. Compared with the rest of the world, and compared with their own experiences of the Great Depression in the 1930s, most Americans found wartime life comfortable. Cultural life and popular entertainment thrived, supporting a strong sense of national unity.
Dr. Ben Harding, thank you for being with us today. How important was the war to the lives of African Americans?
Right, so obviously the war was very important for the lives of African Americans, and the start of where it all kicked off was from in 1941. A man called Philip Randolph made a trip to Roosevelt at the White House, and his meeting was relatively groundbreaking in the fact that his meeting allowed African Americans to fight in the war with white Americans. And however, this was of course good because they were allowed to go and fight for the country that many of them would have been born in and raised in. So this is of course a good opportunity, but they were fighting in segregated units and with different uniforms and things like that, and they weren't able to have the opportunities when in Europe as much as the white Americans did. But despite this segregation, it was still, making progress all the same. The Philip Randolph chap I was talking about earlier, in this meeting he had with Roosevelt, he also managed to I want to say persuade, but it wasn't kind of persuade. It was he created about hundreds of thousands of job opportunities for African Americans within the USA, which is of course pretty good progress. And all these jobs are in various industries across the US. World War II allowed many black Americans to move north, with 80% of the population still living in the 11 Confederate states. So them being able to move north was helpful in their road to equality. So overall, the war provided more opportunities for African Americans, but the continuation of segregation was not helpful in the equality that they so much desire.
Also, what was the war's legacy for African Americans?
So, the legacy of the war for African Americans can be divided up into three distinct parts. The first one being that the war drew, as I mentioned earlier, drew African Americans into the north, into work in various job industries. And their movement north, the second point being their movement north, enabled them to move into places where they could vote, completely legally without persecution, and which of course enhanced democracy, as well as it showed that the Democrat Party would be the party of their choice with their civil rights movement that they committed to in 1948. And the third point being that it would be difficult, not nearly it's all embarrassing for people to argue for racial segregation, considering that these African Americans fought for the USA in a war that was partly based on the persecution of a minority in Europe, and worldwide, to an extent. So the legacy for African Americans was a positive one.
Great, thank you. And what was the effect of the war upon women?
Right, so the effect on women of the war was not as far-reaching as it was for African Americans. Due to the amount of men that had to leave and go and fight in the war, the women entered non-traditional jobs, basically working in factories and basically in industry that men had obviously occupied before. The government exploited this to create propaganda icons to promote this women in work type of philosophy. So despite quite a few women, going to work in industry. Very few numbers of them took up highly skilled jobs. Similarly, most women persisted with traditional jobs of staying at home and doing the stereotypical cooking and cleaning, things like that, and demonstrated that despite a world crisis, the majority of women still decided to stay put where they wanted to.
Do you think there was a legacy for working women at the end of the war?
So the legacy that it had where the war had for women was again not as far-reaching as it was for African Americans. The legacy that it showed that women were able to take on the jobs that they did take on in industry, and it showed that they can have influential roles in the social and economic role of the economy. This showed they could have increased influence on the social and economic role of the country. The legacy could also reach further into subsequent generations to seek equality and energise these such generations.
Well, thank you, Dr. Harding, for your time and insight.